Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We will be starting in the next few moments. This is just a sound check. Thank you.
Bore da i chi gyd, gobeithio eich bod i gyd yn cadw'n dda, a diolch yn fawr iawn i chi am ymuno gyda ni bore yma ar gyfer ein webinar i baratoi i ddarparu'r cymhwyster sylfaen gan edrych yn benodol ar plastro a systemau mewnol. Rydym ni gyd yn gweithio adre, felly ymddeiriadau ymlaen llaw am unrhyw sŵn yn y cefndir ac unrhyw oedi yn y sleidiau. Good morning to you all, and thank you very much for joining us on our webinar to prepare to develop the foundation qualification looking at plastering and interior systems. As we are all working from home, I apologise in advance for any background noise and delay in the slides. Fe fyddwch yn derbyn e-bost cyn diwedd y webinar gyda link i'n harolwg. Byddem yn ddiolchgar iawn pydach yn cymeryd yr amser i lenwi hwn. Mae eich adborth yn werthfawr iawn i ni. You will receive an email before the session ends with a link to a survey. We would be very grateful if you could take the time to fill in this survey, as your feedback is very valuable to us. Dyma beth fyddwn ni'n trafod bore yma. Fe fyddwn nhw'n edrych ar y drawsnewidiad a chynnwys y gymhwyster sylfaen, strwythur yr unedau ac yn rhoi amlinelliad o'r asesiadau. Byddwn nhw'n edrych ar yr adnoddau sydd ar gael i chi, yna ymlaen i'r camau nesaf. Ac i gau, cyfle i chi ofyn unrhyw gwestiynau i ni. Plis rhowch eich cwestiynau yn y tab cwestiynau sydd ar y llaw dde o'ch sgrin. Gobeithio fydd gennym digon o amser ar ddiwedd y webinar i ateb gymaint o gwestiynau ag y gallwn. Fe fydd y gwestiynau a'r atebion yn cael ei roi ar wefan Sgiliau i Gymru. Mae'r sesiwn wedi'i gynllunio am awr a hanner, gyda'r cyflwyniad yn cymeryd tua 40 munud. This is what we will be discussing this morning. We will be going over the transformation of these new qualifications. We will look at the foundation qualification content, looking specifically on plastering and interior systems. We will look at the structure of the units and outline of the assessment. We will then take a look at the resources that will be available for you, and then on to the next steps. And then you will have an opportunity to ask us any questions that you may have. Please type in any questions that you have throughout this webinar in the Questions tab on the right-hand side of your screen. The questions and answers will be on the Skills for Wales website. The session is planned for an hour and a half, with the presentation lasting around 40 minutes. Dyma i chi eich cyflwynwyr heddi. Here are your presenters today. Mae David Pye gyda ni. David yw cynghorydd technegol gwasanaethau adeiladau i Sitting Girls. David Pye, who's our lead technical advisor for building services for Sitting Girls. A mae Ian Roberts gyda ni. Ian yw cynghorydd technegol adeiladu i Sitting Girls. We also have Ian Roberts, who's a technical advisor for construction at Sitting Girls. A fi, Angharad Lloyd Bainan, fi yw reolwr busnes Cymru ar gyfer Sitting Girls, and myself, Angharad Lloyd Bainan, I'm the business manager for Sitting Girls for Wales. Nawr, fe gen i Paul sydyn i wybod am eich dealltwriaeth chi am y cymwysterau newydd yma. Now, we will have a quick poll to get your understanding of the new qualifications. Please rhowch eich ateb gyda 5 y rif uchaf. Please give your answers with 5 being the highest number. Felly, sut byddech yn disgrifio eich dealltwriaeth o'r cymhwyster sylfaen gan feddwl yn benodol am plastro a systemau mewnol, gyda 1 y rif isaf a 5 y rif uchaf. So how would you rate your understanding of the foundation qualification, thinking in particular of plastering and interior systems? If you could choose a number between 1 and 5, please, with 5 being your highest level of understanding. Newn ni roi chydig o eiliadau I sicrhau bod pawb yn cael cyfle I roi I ateb. You can give you a few more seconds to make sure everybody's had a chance to answer. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi. Mae hyn o hyd yn ddiddorol iawn I weld y lefel o dealltwriaeth ac rwy'n sicr erbyn diwedd y webinar bydd gennych chi lot fwy o dealltwriaeth am y gymwysterau yma. Thank you very much. It's always been very interesting to see the results and I am sure you have a greater understanding about these qualifications after this webinar. Hoffwn nawr eich trosglwyddo I David Pye a fydd yn eich tywysg trwy y sleidiau nesaf. I would now like to pass you over to David Pye, who will take you through the next slide. Diolch, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne Hallett. I'll take you through some of the transformation and a bit of an overview to give some context. So thank you very much, Anne Hallett, and welcome everyone to the latest webinar. Let's start by having a look at the sector review. I'm sure many of you are aware of the driver for change, but as a recap, or for those who are not aware, let's take a quick look at this slide. So in 2018, the review, which is named Building the Futures, set the framework for change. The review concentrated on qualifications and their processes in the wider construction industry. The review included many discussions with various stakeholders, including employers. So in brief, to meet the skills needs of Wales, the outcomes were as follows: reducing the number of qualifications, providing clear progression routes, and to meet the requirements of portability within Wales and beyond. Let's have a look a little bit more detail at that stakeholder engagement. Here we've provided a brief overview of the stakeholders that have helped develop and shape the content that we've created. They include employers, including micro businesses, medium and large contractors, current practitioners, and those are from across the sector. So hopefully you can see these qualifications have been developed with your peers who have experience of delivering qualifications and resources that are required. So let's have a look at the actual foundation qualification. The foundation qualification that we're covering in this webinar is seen as the entry point for learners who wish to start their journey towards occupational competence in construction and building services engineering trade. This diagram shows various learner journeys through the new suite of qualifications and how the foundation is seen as the starting point. So let's start by looking at learner A. So learner A starts as a full-time learner on the foundation qualification, and then after the first year secures employment, and they would start their apprenticeship level 3 qualification. Whereas learner B, here we can see they commence as a full-time learner again on the foundation qualification, and then due to not being able to secure employment, return to continue a second year full-time progression qualification on a trade-specific progression qualification. And finally, learner C has been successful in gaining employment as an apprentice and will therefore work towards their core qualification, which is a foundation core unit plus 1 trade unit, and then continue their education as an apprentice. The core qualification mirrors the foundation qualification, but as we've just said, is only one trade area. I hope that helps set the context for the foundation webinar. Please make use of the questions tab. I will try to type out replies to all questions as my colleague Ian presents. So please see the questions tab in the right hand corner, type out any queries, thoughts, any concerns you may have, just some discussion topics, and I'll type out replies as Ian is presenting, and then we'll still have time to maybe verbally go through as many questions as you might have at the end of the webinar. So at this point, I'll hand you to my colleague Ian, who'll take you through the next section. Thank you.
Thank you, David and Ann-Harrod, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Here I'm going to provide an overview of the foundation qualification. The first document I would like to draw your attention to is the qualification handbook. It is always the starting point when considering the content, the depth and the understanding of the unit structure. The handbook is available from the Skills for Wales website, and the link is on the slide, as you can see. When you look at the handbook, you will see the 6 core mandatory units, which are units 101 to 106, and are assessed via an on-screen exam, and a range of trade-specific units to achieve the foundation in construction and building services level 2. Although a level 2 qualification, this is seen as the entry point for most learners, as it is a broad offer that leads onto the trade-specific progression qualification. The next document we will consider during this presentation is the assessment pack. This is broken down into sections. Section 2 is for the learner, and sections 3, 4 and 5 for the assessor. And as you can see, section 3 will cover the on-screen assessment. Section 4, practical project, and section 5, the guided discussion. Just a reminder, so when you get the presentation, the link to the documents, if you've not already located them, is located on this slide. So, the rules of combination. The rules of combination for the foundation qualifications are highlighted on this slide for the foundation in construction and building services engineering, which is a level 2 qualification. There are 6 mandatory core units, which are numbered 101 to 106, and then 2 optional trade-specific units that a learner, under the guidance of the centre, will select from a total of 10 units, covering the relevant trades. This is to allow learners to sample 2 trade areas and receive a broader understanding of the construction and building services engineering industry. During this presentation, and as we have mentioned earlier, we will be covering plastering and interior systems during today's webinar. So here we can see the total number of guided learning hours, which is 540. And there will be 3 methods of assessments, with the candidate having to achieve a pass grade or higher in all of the assessments. The hours for the 6 core units equates to 198 guided learning hours. The 2 trade units is 140 hours per trade area. You times that by the 2, because there's 2 trade units I've got to cover, equates to 280. And then the assessments, which totals 62, will give you an overall of 540 guided learning hours. As shown on the previous slide, the total GLH is 540. And it is worth pointing out that the total qualification time including some self-study, reflection time, hours spent in preparation, and formative assessments, etc., totals 600. And this again can be located within the qualification handbook.